What's going on, guys? Jairo Morales from the Grind Fitness Training Systems, and welcome to another topic. Today, we're going to talk about the SAID principle, basically learning how to train for the fight. You're going to see this concept over and over again. Training hard doesn't always mean training smart. You see this a lot in the wrestlers. You see this a lot in amateurs. Basically, people that are starting in the fight game, they think more, harder equals better, but it's not. So you got to learn how to train specifically for whatever your combat sport is, because depending on whether you do MMA or you just do striking or whether you do jiu-jitsu, you have to kind of train in that particular demand, whatever that demand is. So if your training does not match the fight demand, you're just exercising, which, don't get me wrong, exercise is still good for you. But the idea is to do exercise that transfers over directly to your sport. So what is the SAID principle? It basically means the specific adaptation, or it's not basically, it's an acronym for specific adaptation of imposed demands. Okay? What that means is your body will adapt to the stress that's given. Which means that if you mimic striking when you're doing your training or you're exercising, it transfers over directly to striking. If you mimic grappling when you're doing, when you're doing your strength training, it's going to transfer over directly to your grappling. So you have to train in a particular way that's specific for whichever combat sports you actually train. So why are general fitness fails? So what I found so far, what I find recently, and it's changing a little bit because MMA has gotten to the point where, like, now the fighters can hire athletic trainers. There's a little bit more money in the game, so the skill level of the assisted people that are helping the fighters is getting more effective. But what I find for the average Joe is they will transfer bodybuilding ideas while they train. And yeah, that does put on more muscle, but it's not specific to combat sports. So you have to really think like that when you're training. Like, is this helping my combat sport? If it's not, stop doing it. You got to start doing things that's going to be effective, so you're not wasting time, because there's only so much time that you have throughout the week. And remember, when you're doing a combat sport, the combat sport is the heavy lifting. So if you're not doing things in the gym that are specific for your sport, then what you're doing is you're just working out, which again is not a bad thing, but the idea is the working out is there to amplify your combat sport. So if your training doesn't reflect the chaos of combat, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to plateau in your combat sport, and then you're going to be prone to injury in your combat sport. So programming concepts. So these are things depending on what you do. So in MMA, BJJ, and Muay Thai, all of these modalities use different rest to work ratio. So you're going to use conditioning that mimics fight rounds. So if you're a BJJ guy, a lot of isometrics. If you're an MMA guy, you're going to do isometrics and metabolic conditioning. If you're just a Muay Thai guy, you're going to do a lot of single leg hip kicks, things like that, where you're basically training in the gym that are specific rest to work ratios, very specific to the muscle and strength curves that you're using when you're actually doing that sport. So the next one here, I put train like you move in the fight. What that basically means that most gym routines are all sagittal plane, which is this motion where you're doing squats, you're doing bicep curl. It's all in one plane from left to right. But combat sports is not like that. So you need to start adding in transverse plane, lateral plane, rotational movement. You have to kind of make your body omnidirectional, because combat sports is chaotic. You cannot be linear when in the gym. It's a very hard concept for a lot of you guys to understand, but you cannot be linear. The more chaotic, or the more chaotic's not the right word, the more omnidirectional that you are in the gym, the more you can withstand the chaos of your combat sport. Okay? So doing things that are position specific strengths. So like for me, when I'm doing, not just in general. So a good example would be like quarter one-legged lunges, so that you practice changing levels for wrestling, for grappling, and things like that. So you have to be very specific on how you move and how you strengthen the certain movements. And then the last one here, actually two more. There's mental and cognitive SAID. These are reactive drills. basically to get your brain working a little bit better, to get your cognitive or your proprioception better. Again, you're training specific for your sport. And then the last one is build explosive responses. So these are contrast training, such as like doing a heavy deadlift and then doing box jumps. You're doing explosive lifts with heavy lifts. Explosive lifts with heavy lifts. The CNS fires faster under pressure, which means you're doing, let's say, a clean. You're doing a clean, you're doing explosive movement. You're teaching the CNS to fire. And then you're doing box jumps but right behind it. So you're combining the two in order for you to be able to create power and speed at the same time in order for you to create a higher response rate, which again translates over directly to your combat sport. All these little modalities, you got to start thinking about what is it that you're doing in your regimen, in your program, that you can get rid of and replace that's specific for your sport. Don't think regular general fitness. And most people have this conception because it's like, oh, bodybuilding, I want to grow big muscles. We're not trying to look good in the mirror. We're trying to be better fighters. So think like that. Specific adaptation to imposed demands. All right, guys? Thanks for watching. Once again, DM me down below. You have any questions, let me know. You can also download my 7-day reset journal, totally free. I appreciate you listening. See you on the next video.